Hello everyone, welcome to the book and notes. This video is for class 12th English Flamingo book, chapter 1, The Last Lesson by Alphonse Daudet. Here are the handwritten summary notes of this chapter and I will discuss with you line by line. The summary starts as this lesson is set in the days of Franco-Prussian War, in which France was defeated by the Prussia and French district Alsace and Lorraine have been passed in the Prussian hands. That morning, Franz was scared as he was late for the school. Also, as their teacher M. Hamel had announced the previous day that he would ask them the topic of particles, and Franz did not know anything at all. He was more scared of being scolded. Franz has another thought in his mind to miss school and enjoy the day out in the warm and bright weather. He describes the scene of birds chirping and Persian soldiers drilling. The scene outside was more attractive than the school, but Franz controlled the temptation and chose to attend school. As Franz walked past the town hall, he noticed a huge crowd at the notice board. The war with Persia had begun 2.5 years ago, and since then, all the bad news like losing the war, occupation of Alsace and Lorraine by the enemy, that is Persia, etc., had been communicated to the people through this bulletin board. As he walked hurriedly towards the school, the blacksmith, who was also reading the news and had come along with his trainee, called out to Franz from behind and said that he need not go in such a hurry, as there was a plenty of time for him to reach school. Franz thought that the blacksmith was making fun of him, as he was already late for school. He was out of breath and he had walked very fast to reach the garden outside the school. Franz described the usually at the school in the morning, a lot of noise created by the moving of desks, children repeating their class lesson, and teachers striking the table with the rulers could be heard. That day was unusual, as there was no such sound coming out of the school, and it seemed that the school was closed as it used to be on Sunday morning. Franz had planned that he would take cover under the accommodation and reach the school without the notice, but that didn't seem possible. Franz looked inside the class and saw his classmates seated and Mr. M. Hamel, their teacher, walking in the class with the ruler of iron. Franz was ashamed of being late and feared a scolding as he had to enter the classroom in front of everyone. Franz found it strange as M. Hamel did not say anything. On the contrary, politely asked him to get in the seat as the class was about to begin without him. Franz hurried to his seat. After some time, when he overcome the fear, he noticed that his teacher had worn the best dress that day. The teacher wore it on occasion like inspection and prize distribution days. Franz wondered what could be the reason for M. Hamel to wear his special dress. Franz felt that atmosphere in the school was unusual and serious. To add to it, the last benches of the school were occupied by the senior village man, Hosier, who was wearing his three-cornered hat, the retired mayor, postmaster, etc. They all looked sad. Hosier had bought his reader, which was old and torn. He had opened it, kept it on his knee, and had placed his spectacles on it. Franz was confused and could not figure out what was happening that day. Just then Hamel told him that it was their last lesson in the French, as the person in the Berlin had ordered that French language would not longer be taught in the school of Alsace and Lorraine, and that German language be taught instead. The German teacher would arrive the next day, and as this was the last lesson in the French, he wanted them to pay attention. Franz was shocked to know that he could not learn French any longer, and now he latest news that had been put up by the bulletin board of the town hall. Franz regretted for not being serious towards study. and for wasting his time in hunting birds' egg, and playing in the shore river. Till now, Franz considered his book to be an unwanted burden, but suddenly he started considering to be his best friend, whom he could never leave. Franz did not want their teacher M. Hamel to go away. He no longer thought the teacher to be short-tempered and strict. Now he knew M. Hamel was wearing the best dress in honor of his last lesson. He also realized that the villageman had come to pay respect and thank M. Hamel for his service of 40 years in that school. The villagemen had come to the class as they were also sorry for not having studied well in their childhood. They had come to thank their teacher for his last 40 years of service as a teacher of French. Also, they wanted to show respect to their country. The teacher calls out to French as it is his turn to recite the topic of participles. He wanted to be able to recite the topic in one go and without any mistake, but he got confused and stood quietly. His heart was beating fast as he was ashamed of himself and did not have the courage to face his teacher. M. Hamel said that France that he would not scold him as now he has realized his mistake. Every day France told himself that he would study the next day, and now the opportunity to study has ended and he knew nothing. M. Hamel says that all the people of LKs were to be blamed as none was serious towards learning. He tells the class that the Persian would say that they only show to Frenchmen as they can neither speak nor write their own language. He says that French should not feel guilty as everyone is at fault. M. Hamel says that France's parents were not interested in getting him educated. They wanted him to work at a farm or a mill and earn some money. He says that as a teacher he was not interested in teaching them. He would send him to water the plant. Sometimes he would declare a holiday and go for fishing. He also says that French language is one of the clearest and beautiful language. The teacher took a lesson in grammar that day. French was surprised that he understood the lesson with ease. He felt that he had been attentive and that M. Hamel has explained the lesson with a lot of patience. Franz felt that the teacher wanted to give him all knowledge he had before leaving. After grammar, they had a lesson in writing. M. Hamel gave the class new notebook with France LK's beautifully written on them. Franz felt that the notebooks were the flags of France that were floating all around. The entire class was busy writing, and only sound that could be heard was that of pen writing on the paper. Some beetles flew in, but nobody paid any attention to them, not even the littlest one who walked right on the tracing their fish hooks. It would Persian force pigeon also to change their language and coo in German. In between writing, Franz looked at M. Hamel, who sat still and stared at different things in the classroom in succession, as if he wanted to memorize the appearance of everything before leaving. M. Hamel had been teaching at that same place for the last 40 years. The only changes were that the desk in the classroom had worn out due to use over the year. The walnut tree in the garden outside had grown taller. The half vine on the outer wall of the school building has climbed to the roof. Franz felt that the teacher must be heartbroken to be sent away from a place where he had spent 40 years of his life. The noises of his sister packing and moving their luggage could be heard from the room upstairs as they had to leave the next day. M. Hamel heard the lesson from the entire class. After the writing task, was a lesson of history. Then friends referred to the class as babies as as they were reciting the lesson, which is usually done by the younger children. Hausier had put on his spectacles and holding the primer in both his hand recited the letters with the class. He was crying, his voice trembled as he spoke. He could felt emotional like Hosier did. Franz could never forget this last lesson. Just then the clock at the church struck 12 and the prayer song began. At the same moment the sound of the trumpet played by the Persian soldiers who were returning from the drill was heard. M. Hamel face became dull and colorless as time has come for the class to get over. He stood straight and motionless, and Franz said that he had never appeared to be so tall. M. Hamel began to speak but could not continue as he was overpowered by his emotion. He took a piece of chalk and wrote the words Vive le France, meaning long live France, on the blackboard as large as he could. Then he stopped writing, bent towards the wall, and without speaking anything, signaled the class to leave as the class was over. Thank you.